From the topic, a question arises: what does globalization mean? So, it is rapid integration or interconnection between countries. By this, more and more goods and services, information and technologies are moving between countries. Multinational corporations are playing a major role in it. By globalization, not only goods, but movement of human beings have also increased. And this movement has made world much closer than ever before. Now, what are the factors that have enabled globalization? First, transportation technology. A rapid improvement in transportation technology is one of the major factors that has increased the process of globalization. In the last 50 years, the world has witnessed a major improvement in transportation technology, and this had made much faster delivery of goods and services from very long places at lower cost. And the second factor is development in communication and information technology. It has boosted the process of globalization. It has played a major role in spreading out production of services across the world. Because of modern facilities, it is very easy to get information instantly and to communicate from remote areas at negligible cost. But in many villages of our country, there is no electricity to access these modern facilities. And last but not the least, liberalization. Liberalization of trade means allowing foreign companies to set up their business as the restriction set by government is removed. After removal of trade barriers in India in 1991, many countries from across the world came to invest in India and even set up many factories here, and this had made India much liberal than ever before.
The term liberalization denotes removing restrictions from certain private individual activity typically pertaining to economy system. Commonly, liberalization is usually in the context of a government relaxing its previously imposed restriction on economic or social policy. Economic liberalization refers to a situation where inessential restriction and control are removed from a country's economic to ensure that businesses and enterprises can maximize their contribution. It is, however, important to note that liberalization does not mean an uncontrolled economy. Economic liberalization in India was bolstered by its balance of payments crisis in 1985. This crisis rendered the country incapable of paying for its essential imports and servicing its debt payments. India was pushing to the brink of bankrupt therein. As a response to it, the Finance Minister of India, Dr. Manmohan Singh, introduced the economic liberalization in India.
Globalization and its impact on Indian economy. If we look into the history, the Britishers had played a huge role in promoting the trade in India than the Indian government as it is now. During the late medieval period, the extension of trade route between India, Eastern and Western markets resulted in the attraction of Britishers in our country. Historically, Indian spices were one of the most sought after trade commodities, and they became one of the main reasons by which Britishers got fascinated about. Industrial and commercial strength of pre-British era, India was incomparable. It was a chief supplier of most of the luxurious items like cotton, tea, muslins, ivories, and etc. Trade and commerce was pretty developed there. Indian goods were much in demand. They were appreciated for their fine craftsmanship. British Empire became an agent of globalization. They not only fostered trade but also foreign investments on irrigation and other railway projects. What happened next was that the Industrial Revolution in England boosted the company's wealth and trade effort. But at the same time, India, which was known to be a chief supplier, suddenly became a cheap supplier of most of the items. It had to import most of its machineries and cotton products that led to deindustrialization. the company drained India of most of its riches and most precious natural resources that ruined its economic condition. After independence, the Indian government imposed trade barriers as to avoid foreign competitions and to improve its financial conditions. One of the main reasons was that they didn't want to repeat the history that whatever they faced and lost during the British era. But after a few decades of surviving without any international resource, in 1991, it finally removed its trade barriers. It favored liberalization and allowed other countries to trade in India. Globalization is an interconnection of different countries to some needs. Now, what are these needs? Basically, there are four main dimensions of globalization: cultural, political, economic, and social. Now, let us talk about economic globalization. So, it's a process of interdependence of different economies as a result of growing trade and services. It's nothing but a widespread movement of goods, capitals, and information. Even trade, transportation, and communication are also important. It allows many goods to be more affordable and available in almost all parts of the world. Globalization gives access to a large market. How? Instead of selling products in someone's own country, a business can expand to other regions by boosting sales. Now, globalization has led to increasing standard of living, but not all of its effects are positive for us because it also causes some environmental damages. As we know that globalization has led to increase in production, and to increase in production means the more use of natural resources. So this process can also cause a fast depletion of natural resources. Now let us take a look at the case study regarding economic globalization between India and China. So, the beginning of liberalization in India in 1948 led to the growth in GDP excessively. And from 5 million telecommunication lines of India, it has now overall 200 million telecommunication lines. Now focusing on China, China's trade is the third largest one in the whole world, and its telecommunication lines are of about 181.5 million. Now comparing both these countries, India's annual per capita growth income is of about 12.5% in 2021, whereas that of China is 19%. Its financial markets are more developed than that of China, but its GDP share is less than 1% of global scale, whereas the trade of China is leading the world. Educational outcomes in India are improving and approaching towards China, and China is 6 times larger than that of India in case of trade, and it spends 3 times more on infrastructure as that India does.
Cultural globalization. So, cultural globalization refers to the transmission of ideas, meanings, and the values around the world in such a way as to extend and intensify social relations. This process is marked by the common consumption of cultures and have been diffused by the internet, popular culture media, and international travel. People change their views and lifestyle influenced by global cultural and consumption needs. Now, what are its advantages? It gives access to new cultural products like art, entertainment, education, better understanding of foreign values and attitudes, less stereotyping, and fewer misconceptions about other people and cultures. As every coin has 2 sides, it also have disadvantages. It gives rise to a commodity-based consumer culture, dangers of cultural homogenization, westernization, cultural imperialism, or cultural colonialism. Some small cultures may lose their distinct features. Today, whole world is adopting Indian culture, but we are the ones who are ashamed of our own culture. Now let us see the difference between cultural globalization in USA and India. Let's first talk about India. The culture of India is one of the oldest and unique. In India, there is amazing cultural diversity throughout the country. The South, North, and Northeast have their own distinct cultures, and almost every state have carved their own distinct culture. Globalization has not only inculcated the westernization in India, but Indian culture has also spread a great impact globally. Now let's see about USA. The USA has been always a multicultural society, that is a society that is home of many different racial and ethnic groups. Immigrants from all over the world come and settle in USA. You have must heard that US is described as melting point, and it is used because the number of different cultural groups who find their homes in the USA.
Now here comes political globalization. So political globalization is a cooperation between different countries' leaders. We can contact them in times of crisis and concerns. We can take help from them in resolving some of our issues. Some of the consequences of this type of globalization are terrorism, job insecurity, currency fluctuation, and price instability. The growing and development influence on governmental organizations such as UN and WHO, which means governmental actions can take place at an international level. And this type of integration leads to one's stability. Now let us talk about a case study regarding India and America on the basis of its policy. After independence, India formed its own political party, but it is still far from the center of American consciousness as an important country could be. The USA is the only global power in the world today. Its position is unique. Its military reaches at each and every point of the globe. American foreign policy mainly focused on the consolidating of its success. But the Indian government stated that their main aim is to make cooperative relationships with other countries.
Now, what is meant by social globalization? So, social globalization refers to the sharing of ideas and information between and through different countries. In today's world, the internet and social media is the heart of this. Good example of social globalization could include internationally popular films, books, and TV series. It provides cultural integration among the world's people. The downside of social globalization is lacking localization. People are wanting to interact with global, forgetting local. Now, let us see the difference between social globalization in South Korea and India. Let's first talk about South Korea. Social globalization measures the information flow between South Korea and rest of the world in terms of telecommunications through televisions, internet, mails, and other channels. Social globalization in South Korea is increasing day by day, and its main reason is K-drama and K-pops, which are world famous. You must have heard about BTS. South Korea ranks 40 in social globalization, whereas India ranks even after 100 in this aspect.
Multinational companies or corporation. The name in itself is pretty self-explanatory. It is a company or a corporation that operates in many countries. Or in other words, it's a corporation that either manages production or delivers services or both in more than one country. A MNC is a business which owns or controls production or service facilities outside the country in which it is based. This means that they just do not export their products but make them abroad. Usually have interest in at least 4 countries, but most operate in more than this. Now let us discuss about features of MNCs. It is in big size and operate in huge scale. Have huge intellectual capital. It operates in many countries, have large number of customers and also large number of competitors, and have a structured way of decision making. Now let us talk about multinational corporate structure. First, horizontally integrated multinational corporation, which manages production establishment located in different countries to produce the same or similar products. For example, McDonald's. Second, vertically integrated multinational corporation, which manages production establishments in certain countries to produce products that serve as an input. For example, Adidas. Third, diverse multinational corporation, which manages production establishment located in different countries that are neither horizontally nor vertically or horizontal or non-straight integrated. For example, Hilton Roads. Now let us look into 5 alternatives used by MNC to organize their operation in different countries. First, branches. The simplest form of extending business is to set up branches in developing countries. Second, subsidiaries. Multinationals also operate by setting up affiliates as subsidiary companies. Third, joint venture companies. The establishment of that is jointly owned by 2 or more independent firms. Fourth, franchisee holder. An arrangement by which an affiliate firm produces or markets the product of a multinational firm. Fifth, turnkey projects. The multinational attempt to sell or turn over by in a ready-to-use condition. Now let us look into a very interesting topic named as micro multinational. It is enabled by internet-based communication tools. It is a new breed of multinational company which is growing in numbers. They are small businesses. Internet-based tools like Google, Yahoo, eBay, MSN and Amazon make it easy for the micro multinational to reach potential customer in other countries. Now, what are the objectives of MNCs? First, to expand the business beyond the boundaries of the home country. Second, minimize cost of production, especially labor cost. Third, avail of competitive advantage internationally. Fourth, achieve greater efficiency by producing in local market and then exporting the product. Last, make the best use of technological advantages by setting up production facilities abroad. Now, the reason for the establishment of MNCs: to increase market share, to secure cheaper premises and labor. Third, employment and health and safety legislation in other countries may be more relaxed. Fourth, to avoid or minimize the amount of tax to be paid. Fifth, to save on cost of transporting goods on the marketplace. Last, to develop an international brand. Now, to achieve this, MNC needs to respond in following ways. First, to provide employment, train managers, provide products and services that raise the standard of living, introduce and develop new technical skills, introduce new managerial and organizational practices, raise the GDP, increase the productivity, and last, to help build up foreign exchange reserves. Now let us discuss about the Indian MNCs in various fields. For example, in the field of paints, it is Asian Paints. In auto and components, it is Tata Motors and Bharat Forge. In chemicals, it is Tata Chemicals and United Phosphorus. In metals, it is Sterlite Industry and Tisco. In packaging, it is SSLs. In pharmaceuticals, it is Ranbaxy, Wockhardt, Sun and DRN. And at last, oil and gas, it is ONGC. Now, let us discuss about the key challenges that Indian MNCs face. First, domestic market like India vis-a-vis international expansion. The language, the culture, and the autonomy to local managers. The style of doing business in a country, handling of potential liabilities related to labor, IPR, etc. Now, let us discuss about trends of MNCs in India. First MNC in India was the East India Company in 1600. American companies account for around 37% of the turnover of top 20 firms in India. Oil companies and infrastructure builders from Middle Eastern countries are also flocking in India to catch the boom, increasing flocking of European Union companies to India. Finnish mobile handset manufacturing giant Nokia is the largest multinational corporation in India. Italian automobile giant like Fiat, Ford Motors, etc. expanded their operation in India with R&D wings attached. South Korean electronics giant like Samsung and LG Electronic and small and mid-segment car giant Hyundai Motors are doing excellent business and using the country as a hub for global delivery. Now let us look into key advantages of existence of MNCs in India. It creates a working culture for employees. It helps to train them in working business culture and especially in concept of working with better technologies. Provide them safety, health and environmental learning and excellent training grounds for many entrepreneurs. Now let us also discuss about the criticism of MNCs that they have to face. Create false need of consumers, interfere and dominate in the internal affair of sovereign nation, invasive advertising and corporate lobbying, creation of monopolies in the market and elimination of local competitors, depletion of resources due to their continuous use, centralization of R&D operation in their home country, low consideration for human rights and welfare, and the problem of dumping. Now let us also see what India has to offer. India has a population of over 1 billion people. India is ranked as the 10th largest economy, 4th largest in terms of purchasing power parity. India has over 250 to 300 million middle class. Gross domestic product is growing at over 7% to 9%, making it one of the fastest growing economies in the world. Opportunities for US exporters with the right of product or services and have a easier access to capital. Now let us see some examples of MNCs in India which have a long history and tradition. For example, Nestle, Citibank, HP, Samsung, IBM, Coca-Cola, etc. Now let us do a SWOT analysis of MNC. First, what is SWOT analysis? SWOT analysis is the analysis of strength, weakness, opportunities and threat. So, SWOT analysis of MNCs. The strengths: low cost, well developed infrastructure. Weakness: location is often very distant, lack of transportation facilities. Opportunities: attract new industries. Threats: government restrictions and quotas.
Advantages of MNC to the home country. First, acquisition of raw material from abroad. Second, technology and management expertise acquired from competing in global markets. Third, export of components and finished goods for assembly or distribution in foreign markets. Fourth, inflow of income from over areas, profits, royalties, and management contracts. Advantages of MNC to the host country. First, transfer of technology, capital, and entrepreneurship. Second, increase in investment level and thus the income and employment in the host country. Third, greater availability of product for local consumers. Fourth, increase in exports and decrease in imports. Now, disadvantages of MNC to the home country. First, MNC shares innovative and advanced technologies and equipment with host countries that allow such countries to reduce their dependence on parents or home country. Second, MNC share the capital from the home country to various host countries, causing unfavorable balance of payment. Third, as investment in foreign countries is more profitable, MNCs may neglect the home country's industrial and economic development. Disadvantages of MNC to the host country. First, MNCs may kill the domestic industry by monopolizing the host country's market. MNCs may transfer outdated technology from their home country and reserve the latest one. Third, they do not operate under the purview of local government and they also make a lot of profit, so they may pose a threat to economic sovereignty of nation. Fourth, in order to make profits, MNCs may use natural resources of the host country indiscriminately and cause depletion of the resources. Foreign trade. Foreign trade refers to the trade between two or more countries. In other words, it is the act of trading products and services in the international markets. It connects the market to different countries across the world. It generally involves exchange of goods, services, and the capital of one country with another country. Foreign trade facilities the availability of goods which are produced in different countries in the domestic market of a country. Example, toys made in China are sold in the shops of your city. Thus, it helps provide a wide range of products and services in the domestic markets. It also has a significant contribution to the gross domestic product or GDP of a country. Foreign trade can be of three types. First, import trade. When goods or services are purchased by a country from another country, in other words, flow of goods from a foreign country to the home country. Second, export trade. When one country sells goods or services to another country, in other words, it is the outflow of goods or services from one country to another country. Third, interport trade. It is also known as re-export. In this type of foreign trade, the goods are purchased from one country and then after some processing sold to another country. Foreign investment. Foreign investment refers to the investment made by a company or organization in other country. In foreign investment, a company usually establishes manufacturing units, sales and marketing offices, etc. in other countries. Thus, it is a huge investment made by the foreign company in another country to set up its offices or branches to grow its business. Its simple words, foreign investment is the introduction of foreign capital from one country to a company based in another country. Thus, it helps to move capital from one country to another country. It can occur in three different forms such as first, foreign direct investment. It is the investment made by foreign companies into the production or business of a company based in another country. Second, foreign portfolio investment. It is the investment made by the foreign company in the stock market of another country. Third, foreign institutional investment. It is the investment made by a foreign company in the passive holding of a company based in another country.
Major laws and policies policies which attract MNCs in various countries. Liberalization of economy. It removes the entry barriers of any company in the country and gives permission to do business in the country. Liberalization of FDI policy. This removes the limit of investment of MNC in the country. The ease of doing business is instrumental in smoothing the pathways for obtaining the required regulatory approvals and thereby facilitating the attraction of foreign investors. Making it easier to start a business by abolishing the filing fee for the company incorporation forms, electronic memorandum of association and articles of association. Policies making MNC easier to trade across the borders by enabling post, clearance audits, integration trade stakeholder in a single electronic platform, upgrading port infrastructures, and enhancing the electronic submission of documents. International treaty organization and or economic, custom or monetary unions or free trade areas. The country having international treaties like World Trade Organization, WTO, Asian Free Trade Area, AFTA, Framework Agreement with the Gulf Cooperation Council, GCC states, BRIC, etc. with other country or group of countries are also attract MNCs as these treaties liberalize the trade by removing the restrictions. Tax incentive benefit. The country which provides better tax incentive to MNCs are favorable to them. Reforms in labor law. Country having reforms in labor law creating less hurdles in working due to industrial disputes, issues related to trade union and workers. Implementation of Insolvency Code. The Insolvency Code like Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code 2016 in India provides an effective legal framework for timely resolution of insolvency and bankruptcy matters, with several foreign acquirers and bidders participating in the insolvency resolution process. Case study regarding major laws and policies which attract MNCs to India and Israel. Overview about both the countries. India. India ranks 12th among the top 20 host countries for FDI and the biggest host in the sub-region. Singapore, Mauritius, Netherlands, Japan, US, UK, France and Germany are the main investing countries in India. Investments were mainly oriented towards services, computer software and hardware, telecommunication, trade, automobile industries, construction and chemicals. Israel. Israel has a liberal investment system and its rank is 16 among the top 20 host countries. Israel's main investing partners are United States and Netherlands. Most FDI stocks are directed toward manufacturing, information and communication and financial and insurance activities. India versus Israel. In India, foreign investments are guaranteed with some exceptions. In Israel, there are no restrictions on foreign investments except for some sectors considered vital for national security. India has a bilateral investment treaties with United Kingdom, France, Germany, Canada, Malaysia and Mauritius. Israel has signed FTAs, free trade agreements with Canada, Colombia, EFTA, Egypt, the EU, Jordan, Mercosur, Mexico, Panama, Sri Lanka, Turkey, US and Vietnam. India's labor regulation remaining rigid and among the most complex in the world. Israel's labor costs are higher than the region's standard and a relatively high corporate tax are obstacles to investment in Israel. The Government of India provides non-tax and tax investment incentives in specific sectors and regions. The government has recently relaxed FDI policy in a variety of sectors by such measures as raising the foreign investment limit, easing conditions for investment, and putting many sectors on automatic route. Foreign investment is encouraged in Israel by the recently revised Investment Promotion Act. The recent amendment to this act adds a tax incentive program.
Thing here is what is fair globalization. So globalization refers to the status where the benefits of globalization are equally distributed among the developing and the developed nations. All positives and negative aspects of development are enjoyed by both the rich and the poor ones. But the thing is now that people with education, skills and wealth have made the best use of the new opportunities. On the other hand, there are many people who have not got their share of benefits. Since globalization is now a reality, the thing is how to make globalization more fair. So here the government can play a major role in making it possible. It can ensure that the labor laws are properly implemented and the workers get their rights. It can support small producers to improve their performance. Then it can negotiate at the World Trade Organization for the fairer rules. Then also, if necessary, the government can use trade and investment barriers. So these are the few possible things from which we can make globalization more fair.
Impacts of globalization on the world. Globalization given different impacts on different parts of the world. However, we can classify these impacts into positive impacts and negative impacts of globalization. Now let us discuss about them both. Positive impacts of globalization. Through globalization, people from different countries are provided with job opportunities within the global. Globalization played a role in poverty reduction in developing countries. It has increased the access of higher education and hence reducing the knowledge gap between different countries. One of the most visible positive effects of globalization is the improved quality of goods due to global competition. The mixing of people and culture from all over the world enables the sharing of ideas and lifestyles, creating a vibrant cultural diversity. Consumers enjoy a great choice of goods and services at cheaper prices. Negative impacts of globalization. Due to competition, prices of goods are always fluctuating. Globalization has led to the spread of Western culture and influence at the expense of local culture. Fast food chain is growing very fast, and most of the people prefer to buy fast food because it's cheap and quick. Globalization has led to increased production. It means more natural resources are used, and this can be used up before they are regenerated. People are losing their jobs because the manufacturing work is outsourced to the country where the cost of manufacturing goods and wages are lower than in their country.
Discuss the impacts of globalization. So the growth of foreign investment in field of corporate, retail and the scientific sector is tremendous in the country. It also had an enormous impact on the social, monetary, cultural and political areas. Now let us start discussing the positive impacts. Firstly, the consumers have greater choices of products with improved quality at lower price. Secondly, MNCs invest in India, which generates employment, which helps people to get their jobs. Then the local companies also gained a lot from collaboration with foreign companies. Then globalization enables some large Indian companies to emerge multinational themselves, such as Tata Motor, Infosys, Wipro, etc. Now let us discuss about the negative impacts as well. Firstly, MNCs tries to cut down the cost by looking for the cheapest suppliers and laborers, and this often leads to long working hour and few wages. Secondly, MNCs has brought major challenges to the large number of producers also like tough competitions with MNCs which are well equipped with technology and skilled labors. Thus, in the long run, these small producers face losses which often leads to shutting down the production, and then small workers lost their jobs.
An SEZ is an enclave within a country that is typically duty-free and has different business and commercial laws chiefly to encourage investment and create employment. Apart from generating employment opportunities and promoting investment, SEZs are created also to better administer these areas, thereby increasing the ease of doing businesses. Special Economic Zones Act 2005. It is defined as an act to provide for the establishment, development and management of the special economic zone for the promotion of exports and for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto. SEZ Approval Mechanism. The SEZ Approval Mechanism is a single window process provided by a 19-member interministerial SEZ Board of Approval.
Due to globalization and pressure of competition, the lives of workers have been highly changed. Large MNCs in garment industries in America and Europe order their products from Indian exporters. These large MNCs with worldwide network look for cheapest products to maximize their profits, and by this they earn 50 to 60% more profit. Now the question is, in what ways the lives of workers have been changed? So, due to globalization, their jobs are no longer secure. They now work on a temporary basis. They have to put in very long working hours. They have to work in night shifts on regular basis during peak time. They get low wages and they are not even getting fair share of benefits. Due to competition, Indian exporters get ready to give products to MNCs at cheap rates. They try to cut their cost as much as possible. As the cost of raw materials can't be reduced, they try to cut their labor cost. Increasingly, conditions of work in the organized sector have to come to assemble the unorganized sector. By the competition among exporters, MNCs are able to find cheapest goods and it allowed them to make large profits. Now, what can be done so that workers can get fair share of benefits? First and foremost, government should protect the workers by making labor laws and implementing them with full devotion. Even today, we have labor laws in our constitution, but rules exist more in books than in practice. Employers at exporting factories, they should give job security to workers. MNCs should order to those exporters only who follow labor laws. Even workers should make trade unions and give pressure on exporters through them to get their fair share of benefits.